The doctor asked. "How is this woman still alive?" The nurse replied, "You don't know her. That's Evangeline Storm. Dying isn't for her." Walter Reed Military Hospital. Emergency room. The doors burst open. A blonde woman on a stretcher, her chest covered in blood, struggling to breathe. Pulse 140, blood pressure dropping. Dr. Webb rushed over. But what he saw stopped him cold. The woman had 4 purple heart medals on her chest. "Fourth time?" he asked in shock. Evangeline's eyes fluttered open. "Fifth," she whispered. "But I saved the children. 5 purple hearts. How is that possible?" Webb had never seen anything like this in his career. "Nurse, get this woman's file. Now." Sarah ran off. When she returned, she held a thick folder. "Doctor, you need to see this file." Webb opened it. First page. Application rejected. Women cannot survive on the battlefield. How did a rejected woman earn 5 medals? What does this mean? Webb was stunned. Sarah answered. 3 years ago, the military academy rejected her. Now she's the most decorated female soldier. Suddenly Evangeline's eyes snapped open. "Radio? I need to get on the radio." "Stay calm, you're safe." "No, I have to warn Alpha Team. There's an ambush." "What ambush? What happened there?" Flashback. 72 hours ago, Afghanistan. Static crackled through the radio. "Alpha Team, Evangeline is staying here. We're leaving." Sergeant Mitchell's voice was tense. Evangeline stood in front of the bombed building. Children's voices came from inside. "Sergeant, there are civilians inside the building." "Storm, that building's coming down. Get out of there." But Evangeline wasn't listening. She'd received her 4th Purple Heart a month ago. Today looked like she'd earn her 5th. Why does she always put herself in danger? 3 years ago, West Point Military Academy. 19-year-old Evangeline Storm waited for her application results. Her blonde hair gleamed in the sunlight, her blue eyes determined and hopeful. The door opened. Colonel Richardson emerged, his face cold and stern. "Miss Storm." "Yes, sir." "Your application has been denied." Evangeline's heart sank. "Why, sir?" "I passed my tests. My scores were sufficient. Women cannot survive on the battlefield," the colonel said flatly. "This academy trains elite soldiers, not babysitters." The other commission members chuckled. Evangeline's cheeks flushed red, but she stood tall. "With respect, sir, give me the chance to prove you wrong." "No." "Good day." What did she do after being rejected? Evangeline walked out of the academy with tears in her eyes. But she wasn't crying. Her father had told her, "Daughter, when life says no to you, you say yes to it." She heard running footsteps in the hallway. "Hey, Storm!" She turned to see a young sergeant. James Mitchell, 25 years old, with kind eyes and an honest face. "Sergeant Mitchell," Evangeline said, saluting. "Listen to me. The commission may have rejected you, but I see your potential. There's a Special Forces program. Unofficial, but we give real combat training." Evangeline's eyes lit up. "What do you mean?" "I'm deploying to Afghanistan in 6 months. Join my team. Let's test you on the battlefield. If you succeed, I can recommend you for official military training." Was this a risky offer? Absolutely. But Evangeline Storm loved taking risks. "When do we start?" "What happened during training?" 6 months later, Afghanistan, Helmand Province. Evangeline looked at herself in the mirror, wearing military gear for the first time. The desert camouflage uniform suited her. Her blonde hair was pulled back tight, determination etched on her face. "Ready, Storm?" Sergeant Mitchell stood at the tent entrance. "I've never been more ready, sir." Alpha Team consisted of 5 people. Mitchell, Evangeline, and 3 experienced soldiers, Rodriguez, Thompson and Bradley. Their first mission was simple: village patrol and intelligence gathering. But nothing is simple in war. The convoy moved through dusty Afghan roads. Evangeline studied the landscape. The Afghan mountains gleamed golden in the sunlight, but this beauty was deceptive. Behind every rock could be a potential ambush point. "Storm," Rodriguez said from the passenger seat. "How do you feel about your first mission?" "Nervous but ready," she answered honestly. Bradley laughed. "Nerves are good. They keep you alive." Suddenly Mitchell raised his hand. "Stop!" Something was ahead of the convoy. A metal object, left in the middle of the road. "IED," Thompson whispered. "Roadside bomb." Evangeline's heart raced as she tried to control her breathing. This was her first real moment of danger. "Everyone out." "Slowly," Mitchell ordered. "Storm, you're with me. We're checking it out. Her first bomb. Will she freeze or act?" As they approached the suspicious object, Evangeline felt sweat dripping down her back. But her hands were steady. She'd trained for this moment. "It's not active," Mitchell said after examination. "But someone wanted to slow us down." "Why?" The answer came in the form of gunfire from the surrounding hills. "Crack! Crack! Crack! Ambush!" Rodriguez shouted. "Take cover!" Evangeline dove behind a rock. Bullets whistled overhead. This was it, her first real firefight. But instead of fear, she felt something unexpected: clarity. "Mitchell!" she called out. 12 o'clock, behind that ridge. "I see muzzle flashes." "You sure?" "Positive." Mitchell trusted her eyes. Bradley, Thompson, suppressing fire on that ridge. Rodriguez, flank left. The firefight lasted 20 minutes. When the dust settled, they had neutralized the threat without casualties. Mitchell looked at Evangeline with new respect. "Good eyes, Storm. You saved our asses." That night, around the campfire, the team looked at her differently. She wasn't just the academy reject anymore. She was one of them. But her real test was still coming. 2 weeks later. Village protection mission. The mission was supposed to be routine: protect a village school from Taliban threats. But Evangeline learned that nothing was routine in Afghanistan. They arrived at dawn. The village was quiet, too quiet. "Something's wrong," Evangeline whispered to Mitchell. "I feel it too. Keep your eyes open." The school was a simple building with mud walls and a tin roof. Inside, 30 children aged 5 to 12 were having lessons. Their teacher, a brave Afghan woman named Fatima, smiled when she saw the soldiers. "Thank you for coming," she said in broken English. "The children feel safe now." Evangeline knelt beside a little girl with big brown eyes. "What's your name?" "Mariam," the girl whispered shyly. "That's a beautiful name. Are you learning to read?" Mariam nodded eagerly and showed her a worn book. For a moment, Evangeline forgot about the war. These children just wanted to learn, to have a future. She understood why she was here. Then the mortars started falling. Boom, boom, boom. "Incoming!" Mitchell shouted. "Everyone down!" The building shook. Dust fell from the ceiling. The children screamed. "We're surrounded," Rodriguez reported from the window. "Taliban forces, estimated 40 fighters." Mitchell got on the radio. "Base, this is Alpha Team. We need immediate extraction. 30 civilians in danger." The reply crackled through. "Negative, Alpha Team. Heavy fighting across the sector. No extraction available for 6 hours. 6 hours, with 40 Taliban fighters closing in. How will 5 soldiers protect 30 children for 6 hours? Evangeline looked at the terrified children huddled together. Little Mariam was crying. The other soldiers were checking their ammunition. "It wouldn't last long in a prolonged fight, Mitchell," Evangeline said quietly. "I have an idea. Talk to me." "The Taliban want to fight with soldiers, not children." If we create a diversion, draw them away from the school? That's suicide, Storm. Not if we do it right. Look at the terrain. There's a defensive position on that hill. If one of us takes position there, starts engaging them, they'll focus on that threat. Thompson shook his head. One person alone on that hill? They'd be cut off, outnumbered 40-1. Evangeline met his eyes. Sometimes one person is enough. Is she really considering this sacrifice? Mitchell studied the map. The hill position was good, high ground, natural cover, clear fields of fire. But it was also a death trap. Once there was no way out. Storm, I can't ask you to do this. You're not asking. I'm volunteering. Another mortar exploded nearby. Closer this time. The Taliban were adjusting their aim. We don't have time to debate, Evangeline continued. Give me 10 minutes to get in position. When the shooting starts, move the children to the back room. It's the most protected area. Mitchell looked at his team. They all knew she was right. It was their best chance to save the children. All right, but Storm, you hold that position until extraction arrives. No matter what. You hear me? Copy that, Sergeant. Evangeline checked her rifle one last time. She had 4 magazines of ammunition. Against 40 fighters, it wouldn't last long. But it didn't have to. She just had to buy time. As she prepared to leave, little Mariam grabbed her sleeve. Where are you going? Evangeline knelt down and smiled. I'm going to make sure you can keep reading your book, sweetheart. Will this be the last time she sees these children alive? Evangeline lay prone behind a rocky outcrop, her rifle trained on the valley below. She could see Taliban fighters moving through the terrain, closing in on the school. Her radio crackled. Storm, you in position? Roger that. I count 38 hostiles approaching from 3 directions. Copy. Children are secure. Begin when ready. Evangeline took a deep breath. Her first shot would announce her position to every enemy fighter. After that, she'd be the primary target. She picked out the leader, a tall man with a black turban directing the others, her crosshairs centered on his chest. For the children, she whispered, and squeezed the trigger. Crack! The Taliban leader dropped. Immediately, confused shouts echoed through the valley as fighters scrambled for cover. Alpha Team, party started. They know where I am. Return fire came quickly. Bullets ricocheted off the rocks around her. She shifted position and engaged again. Crack! Crack! 2 more Taliban fighters went down. But now they were all focused on her hill. Storm, you've got 20+ fighters moving toward your position. Evangeline could see them. Armed men climbing the rocky slopes, trying to flank her position. She was trapped. How long can one person hold off 20 fighters? The first group reached her level. Evangeline rolled left as gunfire erupted where she'd been lying. Her return shots were precise. 2 attackers fell, but more kept coming. A grenade exploded 10 feet away. Shrapnel tore through her left shoulder. Her first Purple Heart. I'm hit, she called into the radio. How bad? Functional. Still fighting. Blood soaked her uniform, but Evangeline kept firing. She'd moved to a secondary position, but her ammunition was running low. More Taliban fighters crested the hill. She was surrounded on 3 sides. Another explosion. This time shrapnel caught her right leg. Her second Purple Heart. Storm. Status report. Still here, she gasped. How much longer? Extraction ETA 4 hours. 4 hours. She had maybe 20 rounds left. Can she survive 4 more hours? But something unexpected happened. The Taliban assault slowed. They were being more cautious now, having lost several fighters to her accurate shooting. Evangeline used the lull to apply field dressings to her wounds. Her shoulder burned like fire, and her leg was going numb, but she could still fight. Her radio buzzed with Mitchell's voice. "Storm, you beautiful bastard, you did it. Children are safe." Taliban pulled back from the school. A smile crossed her bloodied face. The diversion had worked. But her fight was far from over. As the sun began to set, the Taliban regrouped for another assault. This time they came from all sides simultaneously. Evangeline's world became a blur of gunfire, explosions, and pain. A mortar blast threw her against a rock, leaving her with severe chest wounds. Her third Purple Heart. Another shrapnel burst caught her in the back as she changed positions. Her fourth Purple Heart. But she kept fighting. How is she still alive? When the extraction helicopter finally arrived, they found Evangeline unconscious behind her rocky fortress. She was surrounded by empty ammunition boxes and enemy casualties. The medic couldn't believe she was still breathing. "How many times was she hit?" the pilot asked. 4 separate wounds. Should have killed her 3 times over. But Evangeline Storm wasn't done fighting yet. What happened next that earned her the 5th Purple Heart? Evangeline stood at attention as General Patterson pinned the 4th Purple Heart to her uniform. Her wounds had healed, but the scars remained. "Soldier, your actions saved 30 children and 4 fellow soldiers. The United States Army is proud to have you." "Thank you, sir. Just doing my job." After the ceremony, Mitchell approached her. "Storm, I have news." Official word came down. "You're being accepted into the regular army. Full combat status." Evangeline's eyes widened. "After everything they said about women, you proved them wrong. Spectacularly." But there was something else in Mitchell's expression. "There's another mission. Volunteer only. High risk." "What kind of mission?" "Rescue operation. 20 kidnapped children from a Taliban compound, deep behind enemy lines." Evangeline didn't hesitate. "When do we leave?" Would this rescue mission give her the 5th Purple Heart? The compound was surrounded by high walls and guard towers. Intelligence suggested 20 children were being held inside, along with 50 Taliban fighters. The plan was complex. Alpha Team would create a diversion at the front gate, while Evangeline infiltrated from the rear to locate the children. "Remember," Mitchell said over the radio, "get in, find the kids, signal for extraction. Don't be a hero." But Evangeline had learned that sometimes being a hero wasn't a choice. She slipped over the rear wall under cover of darkness. The compound was larger than expected. Multiple buildings, patrol routes, guard posts. She moved like a shadow, avoiding patrols, until she found them. 20 children, aged 4 to 14, locked in a basement room. They were scared, hungry, but alive. "It's okay," she whispered in basic Pashto. "I'm here to help." The oldest boy, maybe 12, looked at her with suspicious eyes. "You American?" "Yes. We're going to get you home." But as she prepared to signal for extraction, she heard something that changed everything. Voices above. Taliban fighters preparing to move the children. "Tomorrow we leave for Pakistan," one voice said in Pashto. "These children will never see their families again." The children would be moved before rescue arrived. What could she do? Evangeline had a choice. Wait for backup and risk the children being moved, or act now while she still could. She chose action. 20 children, 50 fighters, 1 soldier. The odds were impossible. But Evangeline had beaten impossible odds before. She began systematically taking out guards, moving the children in small groups toward the rear wall. It was working, until a guard discovered empty rooms and raised the alarm. Gunfire erupted throughout the compound. Evangeline found herself in the main courtyard, surrounded, with 10 children still to evacuate. "Go!" she shouted to the children. "Run to the wall." Taliban fighters poured into the courtyard. Evangeline stood between them and the fleeing children, her rifle blazing. An RPG exploded nearby, the blast throwing her into a concrete wall. Blood poured from multiple wounds. Her fifth Purple Heart. But she kept fighting. How did she survive this? What happened next became legendary in military circles. Wounded, outnumbered, with no cover, Evangeline Storm held off 50 fighters long enough for all 20 children to escape and for Alpha Team to reach her position. When the dust settled, she was found unconscious but alive, her body shielding a wounded child who couldn't run. The medics said later it was medically impossible for someone to survive those injuries and keep fighting. But they didn't know Evangeline Storm. What drives someone to such extremes? Dr. Webb closed the medical file. The story seemed impossible, but the evidence was right there. 5 Purple Hearts, 23 saved children, countless lives protected. How does someone do this? He asked Sarah. I think, Sarah said quietly, some people are just built different. They can't walk away when others need help. Evangeline's eyes opened. This time they were clear, focused. Doctor, the children from the compound, are they safe? Webb smiled. All 20 made it home to their families. Thanks to you. A tear rolled down Evangeline's cheek. Not from pain, but from relief. Then it was worth it. Miss Storm, Webb said. I have to ask why? Why do you keep putting yourself in impossible situations? Evangeline was quiet for a moment, remembering that day 3 years ago when they told her women couldn't survive on the battlefield. Because someone has to, she said simply. And if not me, then who? But what's next for someone who's already achieved the impossible? Webb had one more surprise. There's someone here to see you. The door opened, and General Patterson walked in, followed by a man in a civilian suit. Soldier, the general said. I'd like you to meet Mr. Harrison from the Department of Defense. He has a proposition for you. Harrison stepped forward. Miss Storm, we're forming a new unit. Elite soldiers for the most dangerous missions. We need someone to lead it. Evangeline sat up straighter despite her injuries. What kind of missions? The ones other people say are impossible. A smile crossed her face. The same smile she'd had that day outside the military academy when Mitchell first offered her a chance. When do I start? The woman they said couldn't survive on the battlefield was about to lead others into the most dangerous missions of all. 1 year later. The documentary crew set up their equipment in Evangeline's new office. She wore her dress uniform with all 5 Purple Hearts prominently displayed. Miss Storm, the interviewer asked, what would you say to other young women who are told they can't achieve their dreams? Evangeline looked directly into the camera, her blue eyes burning with determination. I'd tell them what my father told me. When life says no, you say yes. When they say you can't, you prove you can. When they say you'll fail, you succeed so spectacularly they have to change their minds. She stood up, her posture strong despite the scars. I was rejected by the military academy 3 years ago. They said women couldn't survive on the battlefield. Today, I command the most elite unit in the armed forces. We specialize in impossible missions. The interviewer leaned forward. What's the secret to achieving the impossible? Evangeline's answer was simple. Don't listen to the people who tell you it can't be done. Listen to the people who need you to do it. As the camera panned out, viewers could see a wall filled with commendations, photos with rescued children, and letters from families whose loved ones Evangeline had saved. But the most prominent item was a framed rejection letter from West Point Military Academy, with a handwritten note below it. Rejected 3 years ago. Now training their instructors. Yes, the story of Evangeline Storm proves that limitations exist only in the minds of those who impose them. From rejection to recognition, from doubt to legend, her journey reminds us that courage isn't the absence of fear. It's action in spite of fear. Sometimes the people who change the world are the ones the world said couldn't do it. Quiet Tales Studio, where impossible stories become inspiration. Subscribe for more incredible true stories of courage, determination, and triumph against all odds.